in Australia, we have almost doubled the per capita funding for children, broadly speaking, particularly in the state system. And every expert who wants to talk about it says, we've got to resource our schools better, and if governments don't, they're failing. But our academic standards, I mean, you cannot get away from the numbers. They continue to decline. Mm-hmm. Anxiety, depression and self-harm levels continue to rise. Mm-hmm. The extra money doesn't seem to be the solution.
Well,
I'm not saying they shouldn't be well resourced, but it doesn't seem to be the key ingredient.
Well, Jonathan Haidt, the American, he's done a great job of tracking this sort of thing with children. That anxiety and depression levels have risen massively since the introduction of the smartphone.
The very thing you were talking about a moment ago.
And then your child's mental health falls apart, and you don't know why, and it's because you gave them a smartphone. Yeah. And I'm ringing the alarm bells for parents. Is all I can say is do not give them a smartphone. And I know it's hard because they'll say, "But I'm being left out of conversations. I need to be in there." You just need to love your child enough to hold the line. So what was the beginning of what you were saying?
Funding. We've increased funding hugely, but it's done nothing to arrest declining standards and increased problems of anxiety.
So I'm ahead. I'm a principal of a school. I'll always take more money if they're going to give it to me. And of course, money will make things better in some ways. But we always make the mistake of thinking that more money is how you fix the problem. And you've got to think, well, why is the problem a problem? Maybe it's because of a bad idea. Maybe it's because we're doing more of what we've always done. Maybe there's something wrong with the teacher training. Maybe there's something wrong with the discipline. Maybe there's something wrong with our expectations of the children. And then we need to go around to other schools and see, well, what are they doing differently? How can I take an idea from here and from over there and so on to make where I am better, even though I might not have much money? That is... that's how we all need to think. But it's much easier to just say, oh, it's because we don't have the funds. I'd say it's because too often we have bad ideas.
Well, I know in our country, I don't like left-right divides, but it is true that the progressive sort of elements in society, particularly in politics, talk a lot more about education, I think, than others. And yet so often it's just to demand more money or different working conditions for teachers. And I have the utmost respect for teachers. That's not the issue. The focus is not on what is going to help the children prepare for life.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of that is because they assume everybody's sort of doing the right things already. And that's where some humility needs to come. We need to start questioning what we've always done and look to others. So most of the stuff that you see happening here at our school, we've just taken from somewhere else, right? I've been to visit a school and I thought, that's a great idea, let's use that. I've been to another school, well, that's a great idea, let's use that. And so we have adapted and changed so much in order to make sure that the offer that we're giving our children is of the highest possible quality. I think too often schools are just sort of considered the place where children go and they get babysat and they learn something, and it's all right, and there's some kids who are more driven than others, and that's just how it is. And it could be so much better than that.
Isn't there an issue here that I would have thought in this country, I know in ours, education is incredibly important to people who have been successful in life. They will push their kids to the nth degree, and they will demand an awful lot from their schools. So you get that at one level. But then there are the taboo subjects that people won't talk about. When it comes to children doing well. For example, the home environment is a great predictor of how well prepared the kid will be when they enter school and then how well they'll do through.
Yes, and that's true.
But a lot of people are not comfortable saying to parents, if you're going to bring kids into the world, you shouldn't bring them into a dysfunctional environment.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I think, but
we don't talk about it.
No one does. And politicians don't. Because there's nothing in it for them. Why would they go and criticize families, when they want their votes? So, I mean, it's not just don't bring them into dysfunctional environments. It's when you have a child, how are you going to invest in them? How are you going to make sure that you are teaching them? Yeah. Whenever I say this on Twitter about teaching your own child, so many people say to me, I'm not teaching my child. That's the job of schools. Yeah. And I always think, well, okay then. Your child isn't going to do that well at school. Because I can tell you that at 5 years old, There are some children who start school already reading, and there are some children who have no idea how to read. Now, you can say, but the school's going to teach my child. Well, I can tell you for nothing. The ones who already know how to read are at a massive head start, and then they are reading even faster and better and longer books and harder books and so on. And when they're then 12 and they're still reading, and they're reading books for 15-year-olds and so on, and you look at them and go, gosh, it's amazing. My child never took to reading like that. Well, it was because you never taught them. That's why. Now, when I say teach, I don't mean stand up at home with a blackboard, teaching them algebra. I mean, teach them everything. Spend loads of time with them. Talk to them loads. Read to them loads. Draw your finger under the words as you're reading to them. Don't just read them one story before they go to bed. Spend 20, 30 minutes reading to them. Get them to a point where they eventually can read on their own. Go to the shop and buy some phonics support and teach them phonics. You can teach them how to read long before they go to school at 5. And then when they're at school, support the school by making sure you're not just doing the homework, you're doing more than what they're asking. You're counting the peas on the plate. You're counting the cars on the street. Once they know how to count, let's say to 50, you're then counting by 2s, you're then counting by 3s. And over a period of years, you learn how to count by 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s. And hey, presto, guess what? When you're doing their multiplication tables, suddenly it's really easy. Isn't it funny how that boy just picked up those times tables like that? Well, that's because he had a mum who was counting with him by 2s, 3s, and 4s when he was little. And people don't think like that. They just sort of think, well, he just has a knack for maths. No, his mum helped him have that knack for maths. And those years, 0 to 5, long before they ever get to school, they are so crucial in determining a child's future. So a family is so important. But then my thing is the schools need to be excellent because sadly, not all children get that kind of support at home. So we try to make up for some of that as much as we can here at Michaela.